We're giving these external circumstances, these things that are totally outside of our control, power over us. So the more consumed and frustrated that we feel because we're letting them overcome our headspace and there's nothing we can do about it. And not only are we letting these things control our headspace, but beyond that, it's making us feel like we have less control and power over our lives because we're only focusing on the things that are outside of our control rather than focusing on those internal inputs that we actually can control and have choice and autonomy over. Are you feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the external pressures and expectations that the new year brings? Maybe you're feeling a little bit stuck in your current situation or feeling anxiety about falling behind. The good news is you are not alone. So many others, myself included, are feeling the exact same way. The further good news is therapy can help. A therapist can help you distinguish external pressures from your own internal values. Develop a timeline that feels authentic to you rather than one imposed by society. Process any feelings of inadequacy or comparison and whatever else you might be feeling or experiencing. Whatever challenges this new year might bring up for you, BetterHelp can help make it easier. BetterHelp is a therapy platform that is entirely online, making it both comfortable and convenient. Simply fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And don't worry, you can easily switch therapists at any time if it's not the right fit. Start fresh at any day of the year with BetterHelp by clicking the link in the show notes or go to betterhelp.com/unfulfilled to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Hey everyone, welcome back to Unfulfilled. I'm your host, Camille. So excited you are here today. Really excited about today's topic. This is a mindset shift I think every single one of us needs to incorporate, especially as we start out the new year, having these dreams and goals and aspirations. I think the truth is we're all focusing on the wrong things. And so today's episode is all about making this one really important shift to what we should be focusing our energy and attention on in order to live as our happiest, most fulfilled, and successful selves. So before we dive in, if you're not already, please press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. If you are not already, this will give you access to episodes every single week when they come out, as well as mean a lot to me in supporting the Unfulfilled community. So let's dive in. The key mindset shift we all need to make and how to shift our energy to actually attain these goals. So we all want to change our lives. We all want to live our best and as our most fulfilled selves. We all have things that we hope will happen to us. We're all striving for these bigger, better things, right? And in these pursuits, we have tunnel vision on what we want to happen and our external circumstances, all the things that we want to change in our lives, all the things that we want to happen to us, all those external results and metrics that we hope to reach. But what if I told you that this focus is misguided? It's misaligned. It's not where our energy and attention should be focused on. Because by focusing on the external and all that's happening to us, we're missing out on the key thing that we should be focusing on, where we should really be prioritizing where we put our energy. So that shift that we all need to make, we need to be focused on the internal, not the external. We need to shift our focus to prioritizing the inputs if we hope to see those external outputs and results. So what are these inputs? What does focusing on the internal and the inputs mean? What does that look like? It's the person we are. It's who we choose to be in this life. It's the person we embody every single day. It's how we treat others. It's the way we nurture our soul and our mindset. The key input is focusing on being our best self. So constantly asking ourselves these questions. Who is the person that already has everything that I want in this life? What would they do? How do they act? What choices do they make? How do they treat others? What do they prioritize? How do they take care of themselves? What thoughts do they allow space for versus the ones that they don't? What narrative do they let go of that doesn't serve them? The key is to allow these questions to guide you to be your best self and embody your best self, the person that you want to be in this life, in every single experience. And you'll notice that all of these questions have one thing in common. They're all within our control. They're all elements of our lives that we actually have autonomy and control over. They're all things that we can change right now by simply making the choice and effort to do so. Everything else that happens to us, what others say, the circumstances that come along in our lives, the events that impact our lives, all of those are outside of our control. Everything else that is beyond who we choose to be, how we choose to show up, it is not our responsibility, and therefore we shouldn't allow it to consume all of our energy. It's wasted energy trying to control these external, non-controllable things. But the funny thing is, we do constantly allow it to control our energy. The external circumstance is where all of our focus seems to constantly be pulled towards. So a few instances that might feel familiar to you. Oh, my friend did this to me. How could they? It's raining again. It's like the third week in a row. I didn't get that promotion at work I really wanted. The guy I like isn't texting me back. My flight's 2 hours delayed and I'm stuck here at the airport bored. There's traffic. I'm going to be late to my meeting. Or maybe you're not seeing the results or feedback from the work that you're putting in that you really hoped for. The list of external things that are outside of our control is honestly endless. So fill in the blank with whatever you find yourself consumed or frustrated by because it isn't going your way. That thing that you're dwelling on or waiting on, whatever it is, bring it to mind. We all seem to think that by focusing more on these things and dwelling more on the external, the uncontrollable, the better the chance that we'll be able to change them or that they'll go away. We're essentially telling ourselves that, okay, if XYZ happens or if this thing doesn't happen, then I can be happy. Then I can be at peace. So you're waiting and dwelling on this thing, waiting for it to happen or just hoping and praying that it doesn't happen. But these things that we're waiting on and wishing on aren't within our control if they fall into the bucket that we went over earlier. So by focusing on them, we're actually making ourselves worse off. We're giving these external circumstances, these things that are totally outside of our control, power over us. So the more consumed and frustrated that we feel because we're letting them overcome our headspace and there's nothing we can do about it. And not only are we letting these things control our headspace, but beyond that, it's making us feel like we have less control and power over our lives because we're only focusing on the things that are outside of our control rather than focusing on those internal inputs that we actually can control and have choice and autonomy over. So the little math equation I want you to consider here is by focusing more on the external, more on those results, on the output, on the circumstances that happen to us, we're going to feel more frustrated and less empowered. The more we focus on that external, the more frustrated and the less empowered we feel. We're essentially putting our lives in the hands of luck or indeterminable circumstance. Do you want to live this way? Because I don't. And so that's the whole premise of this episode and why I'm really excited about this topic is we can apply this to every single aspect of our lives, to improve every single aspect of our lives with this one simple shift. So what do we do instead, right? Instead of dwelling and focusing on this external, the key, and again, the point of today's episode is to make the shift to the internal, to start to focus on those inputs, to start focusing on being the person that we really want to be, to practice embodying that person who's already living that life that you dream of. So this is not to say, to be clear, that we shouldn't want more for ourselves, that we shouldn't strive for more. But rather it's shifting from coming from a place of need or desperation to a place of attraction, a place of we are content and aligned and happy with who we are and how our lives are going, and that person naturally attracts. So let's get into it a little bit more because I know you want some more answers here. That person that you embody, that best, highest self, that positive energy, that vibe, that's going to attract all the things that you used to be chasing or that you used to cling to. It all comes back around to this input. Who we want to be. That's the key here. That's the one shift we constantly have to make because you are already them. You are already that person. You can choose to be that person right now. That person that is worthy of all these things that you want. That person that is already living that life that you want. Who are they? How do they live their lives? What do they choose to do? Who do they choose to be? We all have this ingrained internal dialogue, right? That we can't be happy until this happens to us. Or if that happens, I'll never be happy. Again, fill in the blank with whatever external circumstance that is holding you back. But as I've spoken to in a lot of previous episodes, this is never really the case, right? When we do get that external thing, that external result, the thing that we think is going to make us super happy, we realize it doesn't. We realize, oh, that's not the key. Or the goalpost just moves further and then there's suddenly all these other things that we need and want from life. There is no external circumstance that can give you what you can only give yourself within internally. Because only by doing the internal work, by prioritizing that input, can you get that true feeling. So this is why we have to make that choice and constantly make this shift to show up as the person who already loves their life, who is grateful for the circumstances that they have. Why are we constantly waiting for the things and the people to magically show up for us when the much better option is we can show up for life? So this has been my biggest mission lately, one of my most transformative goals for 2025. And even being very early on in this mindset shift journey, I have noticed honestly pretty unbelievable changes simply by shifting and changing who I decide to show up as no matter what, regardless of whatever circumstance presents itself that day. I'm constantly focusing on embodying the person that I want to be. I'm constantly coming back to who is that highest self? What would they do? How would they act in this situation? So a really big part of this journey has been overcoming my limiting beliefs, rewiring my internal dialogue and my mindset. I did a whole episode on this with Sammy, who's a subconscious coach, and I'm going to link that episode in the show notes below because it's one of my favorites and is so unbelievably inspiring and impactful, and I know a lot of you are going to love it. So you can find that linked in the show notes if you want to dive into subconscious work and get Sammy's expert tips here. But because of so much of how we feel is dictated by our subconscious, 95%, which is terrifying, this internal rewiring, reprogramming is really, really important. So what does this look like? It's affirmations, EFT, manifestations, meditations. These are a lot of the things I've started to do every single day because these are the things that help me show up as that best person. But not only externally, I start to feel like that person within because you need to really get deep and channel the thoughts and limiting beliefs programmed super deep within us in order to really feel like that person. Because the reality is, if we feel good, we attract more good. If we feel like our best and most empowered selves, then we're going to feel more empowered to taking aligned action towards all we aspire for. If we feel more confident, we're going to come across as more confident and capable. And again, attract more of those opportunities. If we feel more positive, we're going to give out that positive energy, that energy that always attracts, and that energy that helps uplift others. And again, I do want to clarify, it's not that we can't want more in life. We can all strive and should strive for more. I personally have a lot of big hopes, aspirations, and dreams, and that's not what I'm changing here. I'm not just saying, okay, I'm content to just be okay with what I have now for the rest of my life. It's about shifting the approach to attracting more. It's shifting where we direct our energy and focus. So it's shifting from all those external results, outcomes, analytics, whatever it is, all those external things that actually are outside of our control. Instead of focusing on those, we simply need to shift to the internal, focusing on who we embody, who we are, the thoughts that we have. It's making that shift to attract more, to live a life we're happier with. It's not that we can't want more. I hope that makes sense because that was a big aha moment for me recently. So as I mentioned, a big way I've really made this shift is immersing myself in this mindset work, this reprogramming. Again, you can find that episode linked in the show notes. I encourage you all to listen. It's really inspiring. We need to unlearn a lot of the ingrained narratives that we tell ourselves. And a lot of these narratives are telling us to focus on the external, are telling us that once we meet that goal and once we hit that metric, then we can be happy. But since these are untrue, they're keeping us stuck. They're keeping us feeling unfulfilled because it's an endless hamster wheel, right? None of that external is actually going to give us that feeling we're looking for. Another big way that I've really been able to shift and transform to constantly show up as my best self is to do it even when I don't feel like it. So even when I'm not feeling like my best self, even when I'm low energy, when I had not a great night's sleep, when, I don't know, I'm just a little hormonal and moody, I have been making the effort to show up regardless, to do it regardless. Because if we wait until we feel like our best selves to act like our best selves, we're giving away our power. We're relying on those few days where we feel 100%. Do we ever even feel 100%? Honestly, not really. We're human beings. So this is similar to waiting for that good luck to strike or that perfect circumstance to come along to be your best self, to start that thing. More often than not, we're going to feel tired, unmotivated, feel a little bit moody. But by taking action, by showing up as your best self, by starting that thing, by sticking with those promises that you made yourself, by being kind when you don't feel kind, whatever it is, by doing it anyways, you don't allow your feelings or emotions or external circumstance to get in the way of being that person you truly want to be, that person who deserves that life that you really want. And disclaimer here, it does feel really difficult and uncomfortable and unnatural at times to do it when you don't feel like it, especially if you're in the beginning stages of unlearning your prior techniques, unlearning your limiting beliefs, your old habits that weren't serving you. It feels uncomfortable. Often you want to resort to being lazy or being moody, whatever it is you resorted to before, but you can always make the choice to keep showing up. You can always make that choice to be the person that you want to, that you hope to be, because you're already them now. So again, in any single moment, ask yourself, who is that person that already has everything that you want in life? What would they do? How would they act? What choices would they make? How do they treat others? What do they prioritize? How do they take care of themselves? What thoughts do they allow space for, and which ones don't they? What narratives do they let go of that doesn't serve them? So just the other day, a couple personal examples here. I woke up with a horrible migraine. And when I get these migraines, I literally can't see out of one eye. I'm literally like a pirate. Like, it's not a good situation. And I was supposed to go teach yoga that morning. I had a class full of students waiting for me an hour from when I got the migraine. And initially I wanted to cancel class to just go back to bed because I told myself, okay, there's no way I can teach. And I was just in this down spiral narrative and kind of panicking. But instead, since I've committed to this journey of showing up regardless of how I feel, I decided to go teach. I popped some Excedrin and slowly the migraine started to fade and I went and taught anyways. And I think I taught one of my best classes yet. And after that instance, I felt so proud of myself. And I proved to myself that I could regardless, that I didn't have to let external circumstance prevent me from continuing to show up as the person I want to be. And not to say if you're like really, really sick, you shouldn't take a sick day. That's not what I'm saying. But meaning deciding to show up when your first initial instinct is to bail, to say, maybe next time. Ask yourself, what would the person that you admire do? How would they step up? Another instance is the days when I get a bad night's sleep. I'm moody, I'm exhausted, I am feeling a lot more negative than I normally would. It takes a lot more effort for me to try to be positive and kind on those days. You know, I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. So on those days, especially recently on this journey, I fill myself with more positive affirmations. I make sure to prioritize my meditation in the morning rather than skipping it because I know I need it extra on those days. I pause before reacting to make sure that I'm acting with kindness because I know my initial instinct or reaction on those days might be a little shorter than it is on other days. So regardless of that circumstance, being low on sleep, regardless of how I feel, I choose to be my best self in the best way that I can show up that day. So I'm making the choice to show up every day, focusing on my character, spending my time in a way that I know is productive, being a person that I admire, living a life that I value, because that is what she would do, she being my highest self. So to wrap up here, full circle, this shift that we all need to make is letting go of focusing on the external, letting go of all of those things that you're dwelling on that are outside of your control, that you're chasing, that you're clinging to. Stop letting it consume your energy and headspace. Instead, focus on being the person you aspire to be. Focus on the thoughts you choose to give weight to that impact everything else in your life. Focus on how you show up for yourself in your relationships, how you treat strangers. Focus on taking action that's aligned with your values and your principles and your goals. Focus on the quality of the work that you're doing rather than simply doing it for the external validation or metrics or results. Focus on how you choose to show up and live your life. By focusing on all these internal things, those things that we can change right now, you'll start to find yourself living as your best self and attracting all of those things that you used to constantly chase or cling to or let consume you. That wraps up today's episode. I really, really hope you guys liked today's message. Send this to someone who needs to hear it. Send this to someone who you think would feel inspired, would love it. Thank you for showing up today. Again, if you're not already, please press follow or subscribe. Leave a rating for the show. It would mean so much to me. Thank you for being a part of the Unfulfilled community. And I'll see you all again soon on your journeys to becoming more fulfilled.